Hello everyone, I'm Arunima from Knit on Otter, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make the Era mosaic shawl. This shawl is an intermediate pattern which is mainly because of its shape. So it is the mosaic crochet technique in itself. It is not an intermediate level technique, that is a beginner level, but because this shawl has a triangle shape, you need to know some additional stitches, and you need to have be able to work with a lot of loops on the hook at once. So that's why it's qualified as an intermediate level pattern. But this really is just a mosaic sampler shawl made out of 5 different repeating patterns, and I really enjoyed making it. I hope you will too. So in this video, I'll quickly go over the yarn and the hook that I used, and I am going to start making the shawl so you can get started by looking at how to do it. And Let's get started. The yarn that I used for my shawl is Chroma fingering weight yarn. This colorway is different. I used Galantine and Bear. I don't have any of that remaining with me, so that's why I'm going to create this tutorial with this Vermont colorway. But just make sure that you pick 2 colors that are uh, that have a fair bit of contrast, because that is when the pattern shows up really well. And you could also use two color changing yarns, and just try to make sure that the overlapping colors are always in contrast, otherwise the pattern might get lost. But it's completely up to you. If you like that effect, that's fine too. Just wanted to put it out there that that happens sometimes with color changing yarn, where two colors that are not as much contrasting as you'd like overlap, and then the pattern gets lost. So this pattern is written for fingering weight yarn, but you could use any yarn for your project. It is the pattern will work just fine. It's just that your shawl will be larger. I'm assuming you'd use heavier weight yarn, and that's pretty much the only reason why you should use fingering weight yarn. But if you don't mind your shawl being larger, there is no reason why you can't use any other yarn for this project. So this is, so one more thing that I wanted to point out was that make sure that before you start your final project, make a small swatch with the yarn that you've picked, and use both colors and wash it. Wash it like you would wash your final project. This is just to make sure that the colors don't run, because if they do and it happens in your final project, that'll be very frustrating. It is easy to figure out if this will happen by just making a small swatch and washing right in the beginning, so you'll know before you start. So this is all about the yarn, and I'm going to now talk about the hook. This yarn calls for a hook of size between B and E, which is 2.25 millimeters to 3.5 millimeters. So in Tunisian crochet, we usually go up by 2 hook sizes, and that's what I did for this. I started with a G hook size, which is a 4 millimeters, which is 2 sizes larger than the E that's recommended on this yarn label. So I made my shawl with a 4 millimeter hook. You are welcome to try different hook sizes with the yarn you pick. I've seen that with different brands, with different styles of hooks, the gauge can vary, and also depending on what yarn you're using. So if you have the choice, if you have a hook set or if you have multiple hooks of different sizes, then make a swatch with 2 or 3 different sizes and see which one you like best in terms of like how the fabric is developing, what the drape is like. I settled on the 4 mm or the G size hook because I really liked the drape. And my shawl, eventually the final shawl, is very drapey. It's very light and breezy. So that's my process of picking a hook for whatever project I start working on. But if you wanted to go with the recommendation that's in the pattern, I used a 4 millimeters hook, which was a G size hook, and that's what I'm going to be using for this tutorial. Again, it does not matter what yarn brand, what hook brand or what hook type you use. Just make sure that your hook, it's a long hook for Tunisian crochet, and you will need a cable for this pattern. So you can start with a small cable, but you will need a larger cable towards the end because you need to be able to hold about 470 stitches towards the end on a single row, and you should be able to accommodate those. You can always start with a small cable, and then as your rows grow, you can switch this cable out. Okay, let's begin. So I'm going to start with the foundation row. So that is row 1. It starts with the color W, which actually they call it bear, but for me it was white, so that's why I use the color W for it. So or the abbreviation W, but W is for this first color, and that's the one that I'm going to start my foundation row with. So we start with a foundation row of 6 stitches. So I'm going to start with 6 chains. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chains. And then I'm going to make the foundation row stitches in the back loops of the chain. So just going to turn this and find that back bump here of the second stitch from the hook. So that's 1 and 2 second stitch from the hook. Pick that up, yarn over, pull through. That's 2 loops on the hook. I'm going to go all the way. I should have a total of 6. So 6 loops on the hook, and that's going to be my foundation row with 6 stitches. So I'm going to make the return pass, which is going to be the same for all the rows, which is we start with a chain 1, and then we yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, all the way until we have 1 loop on the hook. So that completes the foundation row. Now on to the second row, that is also made with this same color. So I'm going to introduce a bunch of stitches here. So we start with a first stitch, that is this stitch that's on the hook, the loop that's on the hook, that counts as the first stitch. I'm going to make a Tunisian full stitch, which is a stitch that's made in between the current stitch and the next stitch. So there is this space in between, and I'm going to go through and yarn over, pull through. This is actually a increase on this side of the shawl, and then a simple stitch, which is by picking up the front vertical bar, and then I'm going to make a knit stitch and a simple stitch in the same stitch. So if you see here, this here, I'm going to make a knit stitch by going in between the front and back vertical bar, yarn over, pull through. And in the same stitch here, this was the front vertical bar, I'm going to make a simple stitch. So the knit stitch and simple stitch happen in the same stitch. And this is also an increase, which will be the increase for the center of the triangle. And so this side will form one half of the triangle, and this side will form the second half. So we'll mirror whatever we did here on the other side. So we will start here with a twisted simple stitch, and we're going to twist upwards. So I hope this is visible. Okay, so that's the front vertical bar right here. So this is the front vertical bar right here. I'm going to insert my hook into it from the other side. So I like to just pick up this loop with my hook by turning the hook that way and then twisting it upwards and yarn over, pull through. So I have a separate tutorial for all of these stitches. I have a tutorial for full stitches, simple stitches, knit stitches, twisted stitches. If you want to look at them in detail, I'm not going through them in detail in this video. This is about making the shawl. So if you haven't tried these stitches before, I strongly recommend trying them before you start your shawl. So this was the twisted simple stitch, and then I'm going to make a twisted knit stitch in the same stitch. So you see, because of this twisted simple stitch, now this front vertical bar has moved towards the side. So I'm going to go through that and the back vertical bar just right there and yarn over, pull through. So that adds these two stitches here. This is an increase on this side and it's an increase on the other side. And then there is a simple stitch and again a full stitch for the increase on the other side, and then a last stitch, which is we make it by picking up the two vertical bars at the end, which is slightly hard to see over here, but if you turn your project sideways, you can see. So here, so there is this one, this is one, and there is one right behind it, which is this. So you have to pick up these two vertical bars for that last stitch. Those two vertical bars, yarn over and pull through. So we added 4 stitches to this row. There was 6 stitches in the foundation row and there's 10 over here. So there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 loops on the hook at this point. So we make the reverse pass now, which is we chain 1 and then yarn over, pull through 2 until there's 1 loop remaining on the hook. So there's one thing very important here to remember is that as you add loops to the hook, it gets easy for them to overlap, and you might reverse the order of the loops at some point, and that can become a little ugly and difficult to deal with. So make sure that you have enough space between your loops so you're casting off in the same order or in the reverse order as you cast them on. So I have now 10 loops here and I'm going to stop here. The reason for that is it's time for changing color because the next row is made with the next color, which I'm calling C in the pattern. So I'm going to take the other color now here and I'm just going to use this and complete the previous row, and that completes row number 2, and I'm going to start row 3 with this color now. So for row 3, I'm going to, so there's the first stitch, which is this one, and there's a full stitch, Tunisian full stitch that I'm going to make by inserting my hook in between these stitches here, and then yarn over and pull through. And then 3 simple stitches, 1, 2, and 3. And then the next one is again a knit stitch and a simple stitch in the same stitch. So going to make a knit stitch right here and then a simple stitch in the very same stitch. So I'm not going to the next stitch, I'm staying on this one and simple stitch. So there's this increase that happened because of that knit stitch. And then the next one is a twisted simple stitch. And a twisted knit stitch. And then 3 simple stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, a full stitch, and then a last stitch by picking up the 2 vertical bars at the end. So that also added 4 stitches. So there were 10 stitches in the previous row, and this is 14 stitches. So I'm going to do the reverse pass, which is chain 1 and yarn over, pull through 2 until I have 1 loop on the hook. At this point where we increased at the center, these stitches get really close to each other, so please make sure that you are casting off in the right order. And always count your stitches. I always count all my stitches, both in the reverse and the forward passes, because you could make a mistake in either pass. And it's right now, as you saw, that we are adding 4 stitches on every row. This grows really quickly, and if you find an error in the next row, while making the next row, it can be a little frustrating to undo all of that work that you've done. So make sure you're counting. That's the best way to ensure that if you're making an error, you'll find it right away. So that's done. So that's row 3, and I'm going to switch back to the other color. So in mosaic crochet, Tunisian mosaic crochet, we will change color after every row at the beginning of the forward pass. So here I'm moving this yarn to the other side, and I'm picking my first color here, yarn over and pull through. So that completes row 3. Now on to row 4. So if you see here, you see a little bit of this sort of makes the spine at the center. We'll clearly be able to see the center of your triangle, and the left and the right sides will be mirror images of each other. You could use a stitch marker to mark this if this is not so clear for you, but for me, it's very, very clear that this is the center. But stitch markers are really helpful in making sure that you are making your the middle stitches, that is the twisted stitches combinations, in the right place. So row 4, we start with the first stitch and then we make a full stitch. So these full stitches are easy to forget. There were a lot of times that I forgot to make these increases. So please remember to make these increases. So full stitch and then 2 simple stitches. And then there is the ETSS, which is the front post extended simple stitch. So we're going 2 rows down into the same color as the color of the current row, and we're picking the front and back vertical bars. So the front vertical bar is easy, it's right here. The back vertical bar is here, you need to pull a little, it's right here, and we pick them up from above the reverse pass chain. So this was the reverse pass chain, and we're picking these 2 from above that. So these are the 2 bars that you need to pick up, and I have a separate tutorial for this to explain this clearly. If this is not as clear in this tutorial, please go look at that one. I also have a photo tutorial on the blog, so if you prefer photo tutorials, then that's there as well. So I'm going to pick up these 2 bars and then yarn over, pull through, and then make an extended stitch by just chaining 1. So that's all you need to do. I think the hardest part is to find those 2 vertical bars that you need to pick up. Now you could, if this is too hard for you, you could just pick up the front vertical bar and not both, but I found that this gives you the best coverage in terms of how your pattern looks towards the end. This will give you a neat mosaic pattern. But if it is too hard on your hands or your eyes, or it's just you're not able to do it, then if it takes the joy out of it for you, then just you can pick up the front vertical bar. That's completely fine. So that's the ETSS, and then 2 simple stitches, 1, 2, and that's when I reach the middle of this row where I make a knit stitch and simple stitch in the previous stitch, in the same stitch, and then a twisted simple stitch and a twisted knit stitch in the same stitch, and then 2 simple stitches, 1 and 2, and then a front post extended simple stitch, which is again, this is the next stitch. I'm going 1 row down here, it's total of 2 rows down, and I'm going to pick up the 2 vertical bars, yarn over, pull through, and then chain 1, and then 2 simple stitches, so 1 and 2, and a full stitch, and then the last stitch by picking up the 2 vertical bars at the end, and then making the return pass. So this is 18 loops on the hook, so that's 2 4 6 8 2 4 6 8 10 12 14 16 18. So while filming this video, I had to do it twice because I had forgotten this full stitch in the end. It's really easy to miss those. So just make sure that you are you're keeping an eye on those full stitches and that you're making those increases. So for the reverse pass, I'm just going to chain 1 and then yarn over, pull through 2 until there's 1 loop on the hook. And here at this point, these loops can get very close. So again, making sure that I'm casting them off in the right order. And I'm going to stop here and I'm going to change color now, but you can already see that triangle shape forming. Now on to row 5. So row 5 is start with the first stitch and then that full stitch increase and 2 simple stitches, 1, 2, and then a front post extended simple stitch. So you go to the next stitch, go 1 row down and pick up the 2 vertical bars again. So this is the same color as the current row. So yarn over, pull through and chain 1, and then a simple stitch, and then another front post extended simple stitch, and 2 simple stitches. So that's 1 and 2, and then here this is the spine of the triangle, and it's the knit simple in the same stitch, and then twisted simple and twisted knit in the same stitch, and then there is 2 simple stitches, 1, 2, and then a front post extended simple stitch, and then a simple stitch, another front post extended simple stitch, and then 2 simple stitches, and a full stitch, and then the last stitch. And making the reverse pass, we chain 1 and then yarn over, pull through 2 until there's 1 loop on the hook. And then change color again for row 6. So that's pretty much all there is to making the shawl. You just need to know about those full stitch increases on these edges, and then the stitches that we're making in, like 2 stitches that we make in a single stitch to form the center spine. So there is a knit stitch and simple stitch on this side, and there is a twisted simple and twisted knit stitch on this side. So that forms the center spine of the triangle. And as this grows, you can clearly see where you are in terms of the stitches, like are you on one side or the other? And uh, if those center stitches are not lining up, that means there's a mistake somewhere. Make sure you're counting them all the time. While making this tutorial, I think I mentioned this before, but I had to redo this a second time because I forgot a full stitch at the end and I wasn't counting because I was talking, and I had I had one less stitch to work with, so I had to undo a row and redo it. But it's okay at this point because we're still at about close to 20 stitches. But as this grows, you can see that we're adding 4 stitches on every row. So this grows really quickly. The number of loops on your hook will grow really quickly, and undoing even a single row can get very frustrating. So make sure that you're counting your stitches. The other thing, that the tip that I give everybody is that for mosaic patterns, it's very hard to see the pattern develop as you're making it. So make sure that you add a note to your pattern. Like for me, what I do is whenever I work off of a printed pattern or when I'm writing a pattern, I make a note. I actually write down that after every 3 or 4 rows, that I need to do a visual inspection, because if I don't do that, mosaic crochet is very addictive. You just want to keep going row after row after row. You don't want to stop. And before you know it, you've made multiple rows. And then if you look at your work and you find a mistake, then it's a lot to undo and do again. So make a note every few rows. Force yourself to stop and look at how the mosaic pattern is looking. And if you just do a visual inspection, you'll be able to find errors very easily. So I'm going to make a couple more rows in case you wanted to see how it looks after, like I'll make until row 7, and then it's pretty much just following either the chart or the written instructions, and you can make your shawl. There's nothing more to it in terms of technique or stitches. Uh, oh yes, there is the I-cord border, and I'm not going to include that in this tutorial. I have a separate tutorial for that. And if you are attempting the I-cord border, please go through the video tutorial, because it's so much harder to explain it in text. Like I have written down the instructions in the PDF pattern, but it's it's complex for even me to go back and read them. It's so much easier to just look at the video. It's a hard technique to explain by text. So I'm just going to go ahead and make the next row, which is row 6. And so it's a first stitch and a Tunisian full stitch. Now this can be hard, but make sure that you are inserting your hook in the right place. It's a full stitch, 2 simple stitches, a front post extended simple stitch, three simple stitches, 1, 2, 3, and a front post extended simple stitch, and 2 simple stitches. And then we've reached the center, and I'm going to make the knit stitch and simple stitch in the same stitch, and then a twisted simple stitch and twisted knit stitch in the same place, and then 2 simple stitches, and then a front post extended simple stitch, 3 simple stitches, a front post extended simple stitch, and then 2 simple stitches, a full stitch, and the last stitch. And I'm going to make the reverse pass by chain 1 and then yarn over, pull through 2 all the way to the beginning. Okay, I'm stopping here. I'm going to change color. And this is how it's looking. I love how the triangle shape forms. It's really lovely to see this shawl work up. All right, on to row 7, which is a first stitch and a full stitch, increase, and then 2 simple stitches, 1, 2, and then an extended front post extended simple stitch, and then 5 simple stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a front post extended simple stitch and 2 simple stitches, 1, 2, and then we've reached the center, so a knit stitch and simple stitch in the same stitch and a twisted simple stitch and twisted knit stitch in the same place, and then 2 simple stitches, a front post extended simple stitch, and then 5 simple stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a front post extended simple stitch, and then 2 simple stitches, 1, 2, a full stitch, and then this last stitch. And that should be 30 loops. I'm going to count them: 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30. All right, and then I'm going to make the reverse pass, which is a chain 1, and then yarn over, pull through 2 all the way to the beginning until we have like 1 loop on the hook. 2 loops, and then change color, and that completes row 7, and this is how it's looking. I really like how this is looking. It's very pretty. I actually really like this colorway, the Vermont. It's beautiful. These are my colors. I like all of these colors. So okay, this is how it's looking, and this will just keep growing and growing and growing, and you can see the mosaic patterns show up. I am hosting a Tunisian Cal in the Hooked on Tunisian Crochet Facebook group. This is as of July 1st, 2023. So this Cal is going to start on the 3rd of July. And if you are interested, I'm going to drop the all the details in the description below, and you can check those out. This pattern is available for free on my blog, and the charts and the written instructions are available in an ad-free PDF format in my shops. I'm going to add all links below so you can find everything you need. If you have any questions about the technique, about the shawl, please feel free to reach out to me. I hope you will enjoy making this shawl. It's a beautiful technique, and a special thank you to Richard Gartland, because he taught me how to do this. He taught me the front post extended simple stitch. He did the research, and I'm I'm very grateful for him to teach me and to let me teach others. So I hope you will enjoy your shawl. Please share some pictures with me when you make yours, and I will see you in my other tutorials. Bye bye.